Hello, glad to see you on the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
You know what hurts worse than getting dumped? Getting dumped by your own damn family. Not an ex-boyfriend, not a flaky friend, not even a job, no, family. The people who are supposed to be your fallback net when everything else burns down. So when I saw that message in the group chat, the one with the fake cheery emoji string and the overly polite wording, I knew exactly what it was before I even read it twice. My little sister Ashley, always the smiling executioner, had struck again. Only this time, I was the one bleeding, and I hadn't even realized she was holding the knife. Let me rewind, just a little, so you understand how the hell we even got here. My name's Heather, I'm 41, recently divorced, like final court date 2 months ago, and no kids. Just me and a 3-bedroom house I paid for with a decade of grinding in a job I didn't love, plus a mortgage I'd finally won in the split because my ex-husband wanted the boat more than the roof. Classic. I was trying to heal, taking quiet walks, drinking too much coffee, crying in the car like it was cardio. Basically, doing all the broken woman starter pack things. But still, I had hope. The kind that's quiet and flickering, but still lit. And I thought maybe, just maybe, this year's annual family vacation to St. Pete Beach would give me a break from all that. A chance to soak up some sun, talk nonsense with my mom, and eat overpriced seafood while watching drunk college kids make bad decisions. Nothing fancy, just normalcy. Instead, what I got was a betrayal delivered in a text bubble. The message started with, "Hey family." Quick update about the trip, and even that was a red flag. Anytime someone uses more than 2 emojis to open a sentence, they're about to serve you something you don't want to swallow. The message continued, "Ashley and I were thinking it might be best if Heather took this year to rest and recharge. You've been through a lot, and we just want you to heal properly before jumping into all the travel stress. We love you so much." No one called me. No one asked me. Just Ashley, who I've supported through years of unpaid internships and bad boyfriends, deciding for me, with a fake hug and a gentle push off the edge. And the worst part? The rest of the family just nodded along. No one even blinked. My mom replied, "Yes, sweetie, that's probably a good idea. We want you strong for next year." As if this was some kind of pity Olympics and I was supposed to be grateful for the rest stop. Ashley had always been like that, the kind of person who could tell you you're ugly in a tone that made it sound like she was complimenting your shoes. She's 5 years younger, works in social media marketing, which basically means she posts photos of brunch and gets paid more than I ever did, and she's engaged to Blake, a man who has the permanent vibe of someone who thinks tipping is optional. I let them move into my house 6 months ago, temporarily, because their apartment building had mold, and she had a panic attack about air quality. I should have known it was a mistake the minute Blake asked if my wine rack was part of the decor or functional. He drinks seltzer and wears leather sandals to dinner. That's all you need to know. I stood there that night, in the middle of my too quiet living room, staring at that message like it was written in another language. Rest and recharge? Like I was a broken iPhone and not a person. Like my feelings were just another thing to manage on a spreadsheet. I felt heat rise behind my eyes, that kind of betrayal burn that's equal parts sadness and rage, the kind that makes your mouth go dry and your hands start curling into fists before you even realize you're angry. And it hit me, I wasn't being excluded because I needed space. I was being cut out because I made them uncomfortable. Because I wasn't shiny or happy or easy to control anymore. I was the messy one now. The unpredictable one. The one with stories that made family dinners awkward. So, they pushed me aside. Again. But here's the thing they never really understood about me. I may be quiet, but I'm not stupid. I may cry in private, but I remember everything. And when I hurt, I don't break down, I make a list. I plot. And I wait. Because one thing about being ignored and underestimated your whole life, you get real good at planning in the shadows. So I did what any woman with a bruised ego, a legal deed in her name, and 2 freeloading tenants would do. I got up, poured myself a strong drink, and pulled up the locksmith's number I hadn't used since my ex took the garage remote with him. I wasn't gonna do anything drastic. Not yet. But I wanted to feel something solid in my hand, some reminder that I still had control over something. And when I walked to that front door, turned the lock from the inside, and heard the click echo through my empty hallway, I smiled for the first time all week. They think I'll just sit here while they tan and sip margaritas on my dime? They think I'll keep paying the water bill while they post beach selfies? I don't think they understand what I'm like when I'm hurt. The first morning after I changed the locks, I woke up earlier than usual, not from the usual anxiety dream or phantom ringing phone, but from something stranger, peace. Not silence, no, the world was still humming like it always did, with dogs barking down the street and someone's ancient Ford trying to start 2 houses over. But inside my house, inside my own body, there was a kind of stillness I hadn't felt since long before the divorce papers were filed. And I knew, without even pulling back the curtain, that Ashley and Blake were at least 800 miles away, stretched out on some rented chaise lounge, sipping rum drinks and assuming everything back home was just how they left it. Which, of course, it wasn't. I changed the locks the same night I got that group chat message, and no, it wasn't petty. It was protection. Because while Ashley might have smiled and posed and giggled her way into being mom's favorite and dad's soft spot, she also had a way of turning temporary situations into permanent ones without ever asking. When she and Blake moved in after the mold disaster in their overpriced one-bedroom downtown, she said it'd be just for a few weeks until we find something new. That was 6 months ago. 6 long months of her leaving oat milk containers half full in my fridge, of Blake using my guest towels like they were his personal gym stash, of hearing their late-night arguments echo down the hall and pretending I didn't care. I gave them space. I gave them time. I gave them my home. And this is what I got in return. Now, I'm not stupid. I didn't just lock them out and call it a day. I checked the paperwork. I pulled up the deed, the title, the mortgage agreement. My name was on every single document. Every light switch, every doorknob, every square inch of that house belonged to me. Legally. Emotionally. All of it. And so when I called the locksmith, I didn't even feel guilty. I just made sure to use my firmest voice and asked for brushed nickel because it matched the fixtures. While they were stretching out their sunburns and trying to get the perfect golden filter for Instagram, I was pacing the living room barefoot, listening to the satisfying click of new locks sliding into place, one by one. They were gone for exactly 12 days, which is like almost 3 weeks. Plenty of time, I figured, to get some things in order, make a few decisions, maybe even donate that ugly black leather sectional Blake had dumped in the den without asking. I wanted the house to feel like mine again, not like some halfway house for influencer wannabes who couldn't afford their own security deposits. And in those quiet hours, I started to realize something bigger than just resentment. I wasn't just mad at them for cutting me out of the vacation. I was mad at myself for giving them the ammo to do it. Ashley's always had a history of sweet cruelty, the kind of person who gives you a compliment while also cutting your knees out from under you. "That dress really makes you look like you've got curves," she once said at Thanksgiving, loud enough for the table to hear. "You're so brave to wear red," she said another time when I'd finally bought a dress that made me feel powerful. And I let it slide. Every single time. I played the role, older sister, more responsible, more grounded, more patient. I even covered her credit card bill once, back when she lost her job and cried on the phone until I agreed to help. She's always been chaos in glitter heels, and I've always been the mop behind her. But something broke the night I got that message. Something snapped off and started growing into something colder, harder, sharper. They made me the problem. They spun the narrative, made it about my sadness, my divorce, my vibe, like I was some kind of emotional biohazard. Fine. I'll be the problem. But not the kind they can shove into a corner. No, I'll be the problem they can't ignore. Every step I took in that house now had a purpose. I boxed up their clutter. I set aside their mail. I unplugged Blake's gaming console and tossed the controller in a drawer. I made a list, not of revenge, but of boundaries. Actual adult, enforceable boundaries. Something I should have done a long time ago. And as I stood by the window that overlooked the driveway, I imagined their return. The slow realization that the key no longer worked. The frantic jiggle of the knob. The panic scroll through their phones. The first call to my cell, the one I'd let ring. I knew it was coming. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared of the fallout. I was looking forward to it. They were off tanning their skin and curating the illusion of a perfect life while I was back here, digging up the roots of every time I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace. Not anymore. There's only so much being the bigger person you can do before you realize the view from that moral high ground is just loneliness with a better vocabulary. Let them come home. Let them panic. Let them spin their stories. This house isn't theirs. It never was. It was alone, and I'm calling it in. The first call came in just after 8 in the morning, right when the sunlight was slanting through the kitchen window in that soft, almost forgiving way that makes everything feel quieter than it really is. I didn't answer it. My phone buzzed across the counter, showing Blake's name, first name only, because he'd never made it into my contacts properly, and I wasn't about to give him that satisfaction now. I let it ring until it stopped, then turned the ringer off and took another sip of coffee, deliberately slow, like I was savoring every molecule of peace left in that moment. The second call came about 20 minutes later, this time from Ashley's number. Her name lit up the screen in that bold white font, and my thumb hovered for a second longer than I wanted it to. I didn't answer that one either. I watched it ring through, stared at it like it might tell me something new if I looked long enough, then flipped it face down on the countertop. The silence afterward was louder than the ringer had been. By the time the third call came in, I was halfway through cleaning out their shared closet, the one they'd slowly claimed without ever asking, leaving their clothes on my hangers and their stupid matching, his and hers, bathrobes draped over the door like a punchline that kept telling itself. I pulled down a jacket of Blake's, something overpriced and ridiculous, still with the boutique tag dangling from the collar, and tossed it into a box marked donate. The call went to voicemail again, and I didn't even flinch. The fourth call, though, that one I picked up. I don't know why. Maybe I was bored. Maybe I wanted to hear the sound of panic in someone else's voice for a change. Or maybe I just wanted to see what it felt like to hold the power in the conversation, instead of handing it over like I always used to. Did you change the locks? Blake's voice came through the phone like static wrapped in frustration. Not even a hello. No polite segue. Just straight to it, like he'd been practicing the line for hours on the flight home, or maybe the entire car ride from the airport. He sounded breathless, like he'd jogged up the steps and realized the front door wasn't playing nice anymore. I waited half a second before answering, letting the silence draw out just long enough to make him uneasy. "I'm sorry, what are you talking about?" I asked, keeping my tone as even and sweet as honey that's just a little too thick to pour. "The locks," he snapped. "We can't get in. None of the keys work." "You mean my house?" I said slowly, with exaggerated confusion. "You're saying you can't get into the house that I pay taxes on? That I own? That I graciously let you both stay in for, 6 months without rent?" There was a pause, the kind where you can almost hear someone blinking on the other end, trying to figure out which part of the conversation is real and which part is a nightmare. "You can't just, this isn't okay, Heather," he finally managed. "We left our things there. We live there." "No," I corrected him calmly. "You stayed there. Past tense. You never lived here. Not legally. Not permanently. And not anymore." Then I hung up the phone before he could get another word in, and the silence that followed was the most satisfying sound I'd heard in weeks. About 2 hours later, the voicemail came in. Ashley's voice, syrupy and trembling, filled my living room as I played it on speaker while folding towels I'd actually bought, unlike the endless pile of their junk cluttering up my closets. "Heather," she began, dragging my name out like it physically pained her to say it. This is really shocking, and honestly, I thought we were past this kind of behavior. I know you're hurting, and I know the divorce has been hard, but we've been trying to give you space and be supportive, and now you've just locked us out. She sighed theatrically, like she was on some stage production called Saint Ashley, Patron of the Betrayed. I don't know why you're doing this, and I'm trying so hard not to be angry, because I get it, I really do. But this feels extreme. Blake and I are standing outside with suitcases, and it's raining, and it's humiliating. Please call me. Please, just talk to me before you do something you can't undo. I hit delete before she could finish her performance. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in over a year. I drove out to the cemetery, pulled into the gravel lot near the back row, and walked the familiar few steps to the headstone with my father's name carved into it. The grass had grown over slightly at the edges, but the stone itself was clean. I sat down on the little bench beside it and folded my hands in my lap like a schoolgirl waiting for permission to speak. You'd be laughing your ass off if you saw this, I said softly, staring at the carved date under his name. Ashley and Blake are locked out. Completely blindsided. They're probably calling mom and spinning it into some Heather's having a mental break nonsense. But I don't care anymore. I don't want to be the sad one. Not the one they pity. Not the one who has to sit out the vacation like I'm contagious. I'm done playing their version of me. I stayed there until the sun started to dip behind the hills, talking to the stone like it would talk back, feeling more like myself than I had in months. When I stood to leave, I wasn't crying. I wasn't angry. I was just ready. And when I got back home, I called a real estate agent. Because this house? It's not a home anymore. It's a message. And I'm finally the one writing it. It started around 7:30 in the morning with a single passive-aggressive ping from my mother, wrapped in the softest kind of judgment that only mothers can weaponize so perfectly without ever raising their voice or using an expletive. The message in the family group chat, titled simply Fam Red Heart, appeared like a grenade tossed into a silent room. Heather, I just got off the phone with Ashley. I'm very disappointed. This could have waited until they were back. We don't air dirty laundry during family time. Just like that. Not a question, not a clarification, just a condemnation served on a digital platter without so much as a phone call first. I stared at the screen and felt something inside me go entirely cold. Before I even had time to process my mother's loyalty shift, not that it was unexpected, but it always stings to see it in writing, my phone began lighting up like a Christmas tree. Message after message, each one worse than the last, as my siblings chimed in with their canned reactions. My brother Greg, who lives 2 states away and hasn't called me since the divorce finalized, suddenly found time to weigh in. Is everything okay with Heather? This seems kind of extreme. My cousin Tasha, who's barely spoken to me in 5 years, piped up with some nonsense about how she hoped I could find peace because this energy wasn't helping anyone. But Ashley, of course, was the star of the show, the headliner in this circus of well-manicured outrage. Her messages came rapid fire, like she was furiously typing between sobs, though I knew her well enough to understand that most of those tears were probably just for effect. I don't understand why you're doing this to us, she wrote. We've done nothing but support you during your worst moments. I wanted you to rest and feel loved, and now you've embarrassed us and made us homeless. Homeless. As if Blake's parents didn't have a lake house less than an hour away. As if I hadn't let them live rent-free in my house for half a year. As if I had taken something that belonged to them. That's the part that really got me, the delusion that they were entitled to what I had built, simply because I had the audacity to be the big sister. I didn't respond right away. I let the messages build like a fire under a pot, bubbling and frothing over with self-righteousness and faux concern, while I sat at my kitchen table and calmly typed out a reply that was as short as it was devastating. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't curse. I didn't explain or justify. I simply attached a screenshot of the property title, my name alone, bold and irrefutable, and wrote beneath it, just so we're clear on ownership. Everything else is noise. The chat went dead for almost an hour. Not a word from anyone. No bouncing dots. No rebuttals. Just a heavy, stunned silence that stretched out long enough for me to finish my coffee and start planning what would come next. Around noon, Blake sent me a private message. Not in the group chat. Just to me. It was hesitant, even bordering on apologetic, though I could smell the fear through the screen. Hey, I know you're mad, and I get it. I didn't realize Ashley was planning to uninvite you like that. I thought it was something you agreed on. I wasn't trying to be part of this. And for a second, just a second, I almost believed him. But then I remembered the bleach smell in the hallway after they'd left, and how a corner of my wedding photo album had mysteriously gone missing last month. He knew exactly what was happening. He just never thought I'd push back. I didn't reply to Blake. Not right away. Instead, I made another call, this time to the real estate agent I'd spoken to 2 days earlier. We confirmed the open house would be scheduled for Saturday, the exact day Ashley and Blake were planning to come back with their bags and suntans and assumptions. I asked if we could move up the time to early afternoon, just to make sure they'd walk in and find strangers touring the home like it was a showroom. I wanted them to see it with fresh eyes, not as their landing pad, but as something that never really belonged to them in the first place. I cleaned the kitchen until the counters sparkled, staged the guest room just enough to make it look elegant, and left a neatly folded note on the kitchen island where I knew Ashley would find it. The handwriting was careful, not angry. The tone was light, almost playful. You always wanted the beach. Maybe stay there. And as I turned off the lights and stepped outside for some fresh air, I thought about how many times I'd let that girl walk over me, how many vacations I'd played along with just to keep the peace, how many times I'd swallowed my dignity just to avoid a family drama. Not this time. This time, the drama was mine, and I'd written every damn line. I was already awake when I heard the tires crunching the gravel outside, the sound low and hesitant, like even the car wasn't sure it wanted to be there. The morning sun hadn't fully burned through the clouds yet, casting a pale gray light across the living room as I stood barefoot in the kitchen, stirring my coffee with the kind of steady calm you only earn after being torn apart and stitched back together one scar at a time. I didn't rush to the window. I didn't hide. I didn't brace myself for impact. I just stood there, back straight, ceramic mug warm between my hands, and waited for her to come to me. And right on cue, the door flew open, not kicked, not broken, but flung with all the drama of someone who still believed their presence meant something. Ashley stood in the entryway like a woman expecting applause, her cheeks flushed with heat and saltwater humidity, hair wind-tangled from the drive, sunglasses hanging halfway down her nose, and fury in her eyes so big she could barely blink. She didn't say hello. She didn't even close the door. Instead, she just stood there and shouted my name like it was an accusation. "You've lost your mind," she said, voice already cracking from the buildup of whatever rehearsed speech she'd planned in the car. "You've officially gone crazy, Heather. You changed the locks, kicked us out, humiliated me in front of the entire family, and for what? What the hell did we ever do to you?" Her voice bounced off the walls like it belonged to someone 10 feet taller than she really was, but I didn't move. I took another sip of my coffee and looked at her over the rim of the mug, letting the silence stretch between us until even she started to squirm inside her anger. "I didn't kick you out," I said quietly, setting the mug down on the counter like I had all the time in the world. "I reclaimed my house. There's a difference." Ashley let out a short, high laugh that sounded like it belonged in a therapy session, the kind you don't want anyone else to hear. "You lost it. You've been waiting to punish me for something, anything, because you're still bitter about the divorce, about being alone, about your life not looking like mine." "My life?" I asked, tilting my head, the amusement just barely surfacing in my voice. "You mean the one you've been squatting inside for 6 months, pretending it was temporary while you slowly rearranged my drawers and tossed out my linens like they didn't suit your aesthetic?" Ashley stepped forward now, eyes wide, nostrils flaring, that fake innocence starting to melt off her face like cheap mascara. You didn't even tell us. You just changed the damn locks like a psychopath. We had stuff here, Heather. Clothes, electronics, medicine. Do you know how traumatizing it is to come home from a vacation and find yourself locked out? And that's when I finally let myself look at her really look. Not the version of her that charmed waiters and posted filtered selfies from Bali, but the real version, the one who'd spent years smiling while twisting the knife. You want to talk about traumatizing? I asked, voice lower now. Let's talk about what I found in the guest room closet before I made that decision. Let's talk about the bleach-stained towels, the comforter that smelled like chemicals, the corner of the mattress cover that was burned clean through. That wasn't an accident, Ashley. She blinked, mouth slightly open, like she hadn't expected me to know. Like maybe she thought I'd blamed myself, or the laundry machine, or time. But I kept going. I needed her to hear it all. And while we're on the subject of trauma, I continued, reaching into the drawer beside me. Maybe you can explain this. I held up the shredded edge of what used to be a photograph, the corner of my wedding album, the one I kept in a bin in the attic, where no one had any reason to go. Just a sliver of the gold-embossed border, a partial shot of a white dress, and the unmistakable rip through a memory I used to think meant something. I found the rest in the outside trash bin. You didn't even bother to bury it under anything. Just threw it out like it was nothing. Ashley's mouth opened, then closed. Her eyes flicked from the photo to my face, searching for some crack, some place to squeeze in a half-hearted apology or another lie. But there wasn't room for either. She stepped back, just one step, and I could see it, the truth crashing in behind her eyes like a wave that finally hit shore. I never planned to kick you out, I said, voice even, steady, sure. I was going to wait until you moved on your own. I was going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But that bleach? That photo album? That told me everything I needed to know about how you saw me. How you saw this house. You weren't just living here. You were erasing me from it. She opened her mouth again, softer now, trying a different angle. Heather, please. We can fix this. You don't have to throw us away. I took a long breath, let it settle into the pit of my stomach, and then smiled, not cruelly, but with the kind of quiet finality that doesn't leave room for anything else. Funny thing about family, I said, watching her face for any flicker of understanding. They say blood is thicker than water. But bleach? Bleach eats through anything. I didn't tell her whether I'd let them back in. I didn't offer forgiveness or punishment. I just stepped past her, walked out onto the porch, and let the cool morning air wrap around me like something earned. They left with sunscreen, packing light for a vacation they thought would end in their usual triumph. But I stayed with scars, the kind no amount of sun could fade. Guess which one lasts longer?